All right, coming to you live. This is the Slumdog Balrog Sports Show. First episode, lovingly done in honor of Chandler, in an effort to meet our stubborn little girl. Her father, especially, and her uncle are doing a podcast to encourage her to get out of there. So hopefully this works, right?
Thanks for the shout out.
So, since you've been stubborn, Chandler, you won't get to watch this live, but someday you can look back at it and see how dumb and silly your dad and your uncle are. Okay, so we've got a new draft class for the Packers. I think it's underrated to me how important this specific draft class is to the entire future of the team, really. Like they're kind of at a time right now where some of the recent draft classes that have produced a lot of really good contributors are about to start to need those bigger contracts. And so hitting on a draft class like this as we're kind of reaching the end of that first window of the Jordan Love era, I don't think it's been talked about quite enough how important these players are to the future of the team. Yeah,
That's
so
very true.
I was kind of thinking, I think a good way to talk through the draft is I want to go, we've got the 8 players the Packers drafted. I kind of want to do a little bit of a fantasy draft type style thing where we go based on value. So we're talking about the player, obviously how much we like the player, but also where they were drafted, what position they were at, maybe who else was on the board when they were selected. And I want you to start, Sam. I want you to take who you thought of the 8 draft picks, who was the best value to you, and then I'll go second with who's left.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start in kind of a boring spot, but I think, like you said in your analysis, one that we don't even talk about enough, even though he was our first round pick. But I think I will go Matthew Golden. I am on the side of him being the second best receiver in the class, and I honestly didn't have him much further behind T Mac, especially with his 40-yard dash that he ran. So I think Golden is super complete. Uh, yeah, I think he can stretch the field at all 3 levels, and I just think in terms of value, yeah, there was a few guys that I would have been okay with us taking at that spot at 23, but um, we're really grateful they didn't trade back and try to get more capital and take someone at the end of the round like they talked about doing, but they just took the best player available for once in our life, and that feels really good. But I think with Golden, um, yeah, I really liked his tape. Thought he looked great, and I'm someone that's very low on Quinn Ewers as a quarterback, and so I think he and also the offense, like you talked about in your analysis too, how they just didn't get him on the field very much, and it was more a receiver by committee type thing. But every time he was on the field, he's pretty deadly, and so I think the fit with the Packers is a really good one. You see, how we have kind of that same receiver by committee vibe going on, but I think he can actually be that number one guy for Jordan Love, and um, he has all the tools to do it. It's just some people are annoyed by the fit. I don't know why, but it seems like a really good fit to me, and seems like the perfect guy to complement all the other receivers that we already have. So he's who I'm taking number one in terms of value.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you said. I think it's interesting. I can see how, with how many receivers the Packers have, going into it, it seemed like they had one of every type already, especially if you include Watson. And I know a lot of people kind of discounted Watson because of the ACL, but if you include Watson, it felt like they had one of every type of receiver you could possibly imagine. So to me, realizing that the Packers needed a wide receiver one, I had just been thinking we've just got to get a better version of Watson, or you have to find
Mm-hmm.
that version of Watson because that's what's gone now because of that ACL again. And so, I mean, a player I really, really loved was Jaden Higgins. I liked T Mac a lot too, and I thought both of those guys were kind of more in that Watson esque mold, or maybe I don't think Watson's been, as a player, everything the Packers hoped that he'd be when they drafted him, but kind of maybe what they envisioned Watson to be. I thought Higgins or T Mac could have been that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting seeing the golden pick and then going back and realizing that even though height, weight, wise, height, weight, speed, he might seem pretty similar to Jaden Reed, except faster. He really is so different. And yeah, I'd brought up the Greg Jennings comp before, and just when you see Golden run, he runs the first 10 yards, and then whether it's an out route, an in route, a post, a corner, a streak, a hitch, anything, it looks exactly the same for the first 10 yards. And then the way he moves at the top of the route is just so sudden, and he's got so much speed too that we saw at the combine, obviously. I like the Packers have struggled to beat man coverage ever since Devontae left, and it's been a huge problem, especially on third downs. And then last year, whenever they did beat man coverage, they dropped it. But I mean, Golden didn't have great numbers against man coverage in college. But when you see a guy that moves like that, I don't think there's any way he doesn't become a good man beater in the future.
Yeah. And just to add on top of that, the stat about how he led the FBS in receptions down the field or something, like when the quarterback aired it out, he came down with most of those catches, led the FBS in that. That's something that Jordan Love does a lot. Just huck it down the field when he's under duress. And so, I don't know. I think Christian Watson has been a fantastic receiver for the Packers when he's healthy. And so, I hate when people say, oh, the Packers don't need a number one guy. Because every quarterback needs a number one guy. And I think Watson has been that guy for Love when he's healthy. He's been up there. And so, I mean, it hasn't been as good as expected, but if Watson can do what he's done in that situation, I think Golden's just going to be even better.
Yeah. The only thing that I think Watson hasn't lived up to is he has not been a contested catch guy. Because you just
Yeah.
look at his hand size, his height, his vertical, and everything, and you think he should be really good that way, but he hasn't in that way been quite as great as you'd think he would. But I love Watson as a player. And I just think
Yeah.
like Reed's the slot guy. He eats against zone coverage, but he can't beat man coverage. Watson is the field stretcher on the perimeter. Golden fits so seamlessly into that other Z spot on the other side of the
Hmm.
perimeter. He can play in the slot too. He's been really good against zone, but like I said, I mean, he just moves so sudden and so different than anyone else the Packers have. Like, he's going to help on third down so much. Because ever since Devontae's been gone, when it gets to third and six, like you used to just say, okay, all we need is Devontae to get open, just
Hmm.
his guy. But now it's like if LaFleur's not scheming something up, or Love's not making an incredible pass, there's not an easy conversion there a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that's not to get off on a tangent, but that's why we still need Dobbs. That's why I really hope they don't trade Dobbs because I saw a stat that 40 something percent of his receptions were touchdowns or first downs. That's he's like our only go-to guy in those moments, and so hopefully Golden can take that over. But we need every single one of those receivers we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird receiver room, but if they can
Yeah.
figure it out, it could be really good.
Mm.
Okay, so I think I was gonna say Golden was maybe my number one value pick, but if you take Golden off the board, I'm gonna get freaky with it and say that I think the second best value was Warren Brinson in the sixth round,
Mm.
and it terrifies me that they waited this long to draft a defensive tackle because I feel like it's been this way. I feel like every summer I've had this same thought about the Packers for the last decade, where it's just if Kenny Clark gets injured, they're in serious trouble because there's no one. There's other defensive tackles, but they're all pass rushing three techniques. There's
Hmm.
nobody that can play the TJ Slayton role other than Kenny Clark right now. And I don't think Kenny Clark can even be as good as Slayton was against the run in that spot. But Brinson does have that versatility to play in the one tech and the three tech spot. I just think when you watched him on tape, he's just so strong. He's so strong, but he's also long and very quick off the ball. And he did it in the SEC. It's not like he was going up against second-rate competition, but when he was blocked one-on-one, that dude did whatever the hell he wanted to with the offensive lineman. He's not big, and he doesn't anchor as well as Slayton does. So if you double team him, you can move him off the spot. But I mean, what can you expect from a rookie in the 6th round, right?
Yeah, he's a guy I haven't watched a ton of tape on yet, but I really like the idea of him. And yeah, just taking a Georgia guy in the 6th round, that always seems to go well for people. So
Yeah,
I like that as a pick. I actually had him number 4 on my list, so he wasn't too far below where you have him.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think he's going to be a good player, but I just think that defensive tackle position was such a sneaky, huge need that
Mhm.
even if Brinson is pretty good, the Packers might really regret waiting so long to draft a guy at that spot.
Yeah, and it's not like Kenny Clark is a dude anymore that you can rely on. Even if he is fully healthy, it's still kind of a weak room.
Yeah, if Kenny Clark doesn't play better than he did last year, yeah, that they might be in some deep shit.
Yeah. Can you still hear me okay? My AirPod just died in one ear.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah, my last thing on Brinson is it was kind of cool to see him. Did you ever watch the interviews he had
yeah. I
where he
watched.
was talking about? Go ahead.
I just was saying I watched one or two of them.
Yeah, I just thought it was cool that he was fangirling over meeting Kenny Clark when most people probably don't even know who that is.
Yeah, it was cool. All right, you're up.
Okay. Um, let's see. I was surprised you didn't go this route. I'm sure you won't have him much lower, but my number 2 pick is Baron Sorrell.
Mm,
And I think this is one of the picks that I think this happens every year where we pick a guy that we all are really excited about and we just immediately talk ourselves into okay, this guy's going to be good, mostly because of the value, but also because we get excited about the player. But then
mm.
as the offseason progresses, I start to be like, man, what if this guy sucks? And I got so excited about him, but he's not actually good. And last year, I think we can both agree that we did that about Evan Williams, where immediately we're like, okay, this guy could be even better than Bullard. But
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, his tape was good, but just the feeling I get from looking at this player, I'm like, yeah, he just reminds me of Micah Hyde. He's going to be good. And he turned out to be pretty outstanding as a rookie. And so, I don't know, that's how I feel about Sorrell. He already just seems to be like a guy that produced in college. He, I've heard a lot of people say he was the biggest dog on that team on defense, on a really good defense. And so he just seems like he'll be a good fit, kind of like the Preston Smith vibe to me. I don't know, he's not a pure speed rusher, but obviously has very good talent off the edge and then can secure it down on the run too. So I don't know. I'm excited about him, and I think he's a guy that could chase Enagbare off the team. Might make it hard for him to make the squad. So especially having Colin Oliver too, a couple guys pushing the players in the edge room. I think just really good value. A guy that I mean, you said you expected to be off the board by then, so I think he was a
Hmm.
really good pick for us.
Hmm. Yeah, I love it. I think I probably would have had him as number 4 on this list, but he goes number 3 for us. Yeah, I just feel like this is not rooted in any solid analysis or anything like that. But Sorrell having that experience at the draft where he had been in the green room the whole time and then came out and had that sick moment in front of all the Packers fans as a 4th round pick. Like starting your career off that way was such an incredible, just like fate, destiny type feeling. It just feels like he's destined to be at least a solid Packer.
Mm-hmm.
And if he ends up sucking after having that type of moment as he gets drafted, I'd be really surprised. But I totally remember what you're saying with Evan Williams, and I remember feeling the exact same way about Zach Tom a couple years ago too.
Yeah.
Zach Tom, and then I feel like there's been a couple others, but yeah, really solid player. Um, with number 4 for me, I'm gonna go Colin Oliver. What's going on? No, your sound's going weird. We're still good.
Hold on one sec. Sorry.
Okay. This would be a good time to do our first ad read by our wonderful sponsor, Tampax. They're for women in their toughest moments. This podcast's Slumdog Balrog Sports is brought to you by Tampax for all your women's healthcare needs.
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
Is it fine, the volume?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Nice ad. Thanks for the break from Prize Picks and Tampax.
Yeah, but back to Colin Oliver. Um, I am really, really excited that the Packers finally drafted a guy like this. And I just think back to how many moments the team that frustrates me the most against is the Lions because they have that good offensive line, and Jared Goff is not very mobile, but he's such a quick processor and just accurate passer in the short ranges that he just sits back there and just waits for St. Brown to cook Javon Bullard and just makes quick pass to the slot. And then the next play he hits Jahmyr Gibbs on a swing route that goes for 9 yards. And then Laporta beats McDuffie on an out route and he hits that. And it's just like 7 yards, 6 yards, 9 yards, 8 yards, boom, boom. And then they kill us every time. And so for me, I just, in situations like that, watching as a fan, I don't have any excitement or I don't have any hope that Rashawn Gary or Lucas Van Ness are going to be able to bull rush Penei Sewell into Jared Goff's lap so fast that they're going to be able to sack Goff before he can make an 8-yard completion. So they've never had a rusher to combat the quick game like Colin Oliver in a while now. And I just think when you get a guy in the 5th round that one of the last times he played full-time edge rusher, he was 18 years old. He was 4 months out of high school. 4 months out of high school. And the dude had 11 and a half sacks in the Big 12. And since then, he's been splitting time at edge and at off-ball linebacker. And he's had some injuries too, so he hasn't been able to play a full season really dedicated to pass rush like that in a while. But the dude had 11 and a half sacks in the Big 12 as a freaking 18-year-old. And the Packers just drafted him in the 5th round.
Yep, seems like a steal to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were doing at Oklahoma State putting him off ball like that.
He was decent at it, but he's not going to be that in the NFL. I think he could in a pinch, but I watched like 5 games of his, and I probably saw him in coverage on like maybe 6 snaps across the entire 5 games. So they only did it in situations where they knew it was going to be a run play, which makes sense because he's tiny. If he's on the field on 1st and 10, playing defensive end on the left side, a smart team is going to run a stretch play right at him because they're going to be able to just do whatever they want with him. They could put a tight end on him, and they'd be able to block him fine with just a tight end. So, I mean, maybe that's... And I trust Halfway to be creative with him. But when that dude, especially in home games at Lambeau, when it's loud and he gets to time the snap count, that dude is so fast. He's going to have a lot of sacks. I shouldn't say a lot because he'll be a rotational player, but he's going to be an effective pass rusher, even as a rookie, in my opinion.
So does he remind you kind of Josiah Stewart, like that type of player?
He is
your speed rusher.
Exactly like that. But Stewart, I feel like Stewart is better at playing bigger than his size. Like, Stewart's a dog. Stewart really sticks his head in there and holds the point better than you'd think. Oliver's not near the run defender that Stewart is, but he's every bit the pass rusher that Stewart is.
Nice. Sounds like really good value then.
Yeah, I am really excited about it.
Okay, my next one. My first 4 have all been mentioned, so I feel like we had a similar list, but I had Golden, Sorrell, Oliver at 3, then Brinson. Then my 4th one, I'm getting a little spicy with it. I have John Williams, the 7th round tackle. And I have him this high mostly because I was low on the three last ones we're gonna get to, but also, I mean, some of his stats really stood out. Being what he was top 10 in pass grade, right, in all the FBS last year,
Hmm.
and yeah, it sounds like the Packers really liked him and had him higher on their board than a lot of teams, and so that means, I mean, that speaks volumes to me. Just being able to get a guy that you wanted to later, that you want to get sooner later in the rounds, and so seems like a guy that is not going to just go quietly in camp and find his way out of the practice squad. He could have a good shot at making the team above guys like Travis Glover. And I mean, the Packers have always hit it well in the later rounds with offensive linemen, especially tackles. Seeing Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom being your bookends right now. John Williams as a seventh rounder has as good of a shot as anybody to make the team and maybe even be a starter next year with all the free agents. Who knows? And so I think that was really good value getting a guy they really liked in the seventh round.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've noticed about Gutekunst is he seems to really try and sign players or draft players as their careers going uphill
Mm-hmm.
or like on the upswing. So, like you see that with the free agents, like Xavier McKinney was a perfect example of that. Um, I think they're hoping they can do the same thing with Aaron Banks this year. But a couple of the draft picks that I think were exciting in that way was John Williams and then also Matthew Golden, because those guys are players that didn't fully hit their stride until the second half of their last season in college. Like if Matthew Golden would have played the way he played the last 6 games of this year, all year long, or even the year before, he would have been a top 10 pick easy. And like John Williams is the same way. He was kind of one of those guys that struggled for a while, but then was really highly graded the last month and a half of the season. So I think, I mean, you find a guy who can move like that, who might be on the upswing like that. Yeah, for me, I'm excited. You sound the alarm bells though if he can't beat Travis Glover in camp though, because that
Yeah.
dude sucks ass. He's so bad.
Who was the? I'm trying to remember. They had like Donovan Jackson last year that was undrafted. Was there another lineman they took in addition to Glover and Monk, or was it just those two last year?
I think it was just those two.
Oh, I'm just thinking of Telfort. He's the other guy that's kind of in that room.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is your top two tackles right now are Tom and Walker, and then theoretically you'd have Morgan and Belton as the backups, and then as the third string, you'd probably have on paper just because Williams hasn't done anything yet. You'd have Glover and Telfort. So Williams might be going into minicamp as the seventh offensive tackle on the team, and some of those
Hmm.
guys will probably transfer to guard. So, and I don't necessarily think that Telfort or Glover will be that tough for Williams to beat out. Yeah, he's gonna get a full redshirt season, but I'm with you. I think he probably would have been my fifth or sixth pick on this list of like he's a guy I can get myself excited about in the seventh round.
Yeah, yeah. So don't you think? I'm thinking about it. So obviously the starting five. Then you mentioned having Morgan and what's his name, Belton being the bench guys. So say you transition one of them to guard, that gives you seven offensive linemen. You throw in Jacob Monk probably as eight. Then I don't know. I'm guessing they keep nine for sure on the 53. So it'd come down to one of John Williams, Glover, and Telford to make the squad. So he's probably got to beat out both of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they keep 10 though.
Yeah, they've done it before for sure.
Yeah. But speaking of offensive line, I'll go to number 6, which for me is Belton. Um, and I feel like I need to say when that pick was announced, because I was still watching on TV when Belton was announced, I was like, oh, why? I was not happy, and it's just because. I mean, I felt like on paper we had enough players on the offensive line. But a couple days ago, because I have no life, before I went to bed, was watching some not highlights. I was watching all 22 tape from all the games that Jordan Morgan played in, and I only got through two of them. But I started with the Cardinals game, and in the Cardinals game, Morgan played at right guard and alternated drives with Sean Ryan, and I just watched all the offensive snaps from that game, and I was really surprised by how poor the offensive line played in that game. Going back to watch it a second time, it was Love did not have a ton of time. It was even Zach Tom gave up a couple pressures here and there. Where Rasheed Walker got burned a decent bit. Elton Jenkins did not have a great game. Josh Myers had a horrible game. Sean Ryan was better than Jordan Morgan, but neither of them were really that great. So I was just watching that thinking, like, maybe the Packers are smarter than all the rest of us, and maybe offensive line really is a bigger deal and a bigger issue than we're all giving it credit for, I guess. Because there was a lot of pressure surrendered on that in that game, and I came away from watching that game, and obviously Josh Myers is gone now, but from watching Walker, Tom, Morgan, Ryan, and Jenkins in that game, the only one who I was like, yeah, I think you should probably sign him to another long-term contract at this point was Zach Tom.
And that's going against a team that has a horrible pass rush, at least
Yeah,
last year.
yeah. There was a couple snaps that I videotaped of Jordan Morgan where he got ragdolled pretty good by a couple different defensive tackles, and I was thinking the same thing to myself. Like I couldn't name one defensive lineman. And I could, but I couldn't name one defensive tackle from this Cardinals team. But they were
Hmm.
all kind of having their way with Josh Myers and Jordan Morgan and all those guys. And so in the moment, I was really annoyed. And I think the reason for my annoyance is valid, I guess, because I do have a strong feeling that at some point this season, even if Jair comes back, there's going to be moments where the Packers are like, ah, I wish we would have drafted Trey Amos, or I wish we would have drafted Chivon Revel, right? I mean, there was a lot of good players on the board still, but I don't know if Belton's going to contribute a ton this year, but that guy is the type of guy that I can get excited about on the Packers offensive line. He's just he's bigger, he's meaner, and I think he's a better option for what the Packers want to be at guard than what they have currently. And I I see a strong future for him. I just don't know if it's going to happen this season.
Tell the listeners what you're saying about how they're adopting more of a gap run scheme.
Yeah, I just think they're transitioning towards bigger offensive linemen that are people movers, stronger guys. Like Aaron Banks is just a different build than a lot of the offensive guards they've had in the past. And Josh Myers is a good example of the type of guy I feel like they're going away from. Because he was kind of I think he was 6'5" and only like 310, so taller, skinnier guy. And if you put Aaron Banks,
Skinny at 310.
yeah, but if you put Aaron Banks and Anthony Belton, I mean, those dudes are 330, 335. Belton reportedly played at 345 at times during the season. But Belton, man, if he really was 345, he moves so well for being 345. Um, yeah, and Josh Jacobs is the perfect example of a gap scheme runner. So when you double team defensive tackles with Banks, with Belton, with Elton Jenkins, that there's so many plays on tape where Belton would be the tackle and the guard would be blocking a defensive tackle right next to Belton. Belton would have nobody in front of him, so he would just from the side just body check whoever the guard was blocking. And sometimes that dude would go flying all the way across the defensive line. So if you put Belton in a situation where he gets to block down on duo runs, he's gonna put people on their butts and then still be able to use his movement skills to get to the second level. Like he's just he's the type of guy that to me is so much more well built and well fit to be a run blocker for Josh Jacobs than what they've had in the past. And it excites me about moving forward with him, but I think he's a guard. I think he's a guard for sure. Because I just think some of the faster edge rushers are going to be able to get around him, and he kind of lurches a lot, so they can get him off center pretty easily. But when you move him inside at guard, just like they did with Mekhi Becton for the Eagles, and just let him smash people, and I think he can be a really good player, especially in the run game.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. My hope is that Jordan Morgan is the left tackle of the future. I don't know why. Just seeing him try to play guard because he is a little bit thinner than guys like Belton and Banks, it just doesn't seem like as good of a fit. And so I hope that he really pushes Rasheed Walker in camp.
Yeah. When I was watching Jordan Morgan, so I couldn't find online because it said he played games at left guard and right guard. So when I looked up, it said he had like 50 snaps in the Cardinals game, but it didn't say what position he played them at. So then I started the Cardinals game, and I was like, okay, I got to figure out if he's left guard or right guard. In the first play, the opening frame is like behind the quarterback, so the camera is just shooting right up the offensive lineman's buttholes, basically. So you just see all five of the linemen, and they're all in their stance before the ball snaps. And I could just tell which one was Jordan Morgan based on the fact that his butt is considerably smaller than the other four guys' butt. And so it's not very sophisticated analysis, but just based off of that, that's not the type of guy that they want on the interior. I mean, he's the type of guy that if you put Jordan Morgan on the inside and force him to block against, I don't know, any Jalen Carter, he's going to get bull rushed into Love's face over and over and over and over again. But if you put him on the outside and let him play tackle, I think even though he has short arms, just athletically, he's so much better suited to play out
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. So more than how a player looks or their stats, it's about their cheek size.
there. Yeah.
All right.
On that,
Um,
here's our next ad read for Charmin.
I hope we get to the point where we need ads. Okay, I had Anthony Belton one below where you had him. I had him at 7 of 8, and once again, I really like the pick. Like I like the player, but not the value as much, and so that's why I had him lower. But the guy I had just above him is Savion Williams.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, Williams is a guy I think a lot of Packers fans are torn on. There's so many people that are like, "Oh, this guy's a freak. He's going to be so amazing in the NFL." Cordero Patterson sucked, and that's his comp. And I think that is the most accurate comp in the whole draft. But I'm not saying this guy's gonna suck, but I think he's just so unpolished from everything I've watched. Like you see him, his raw physical nature is crazy, as he led the FBS in contested catch rate. Um, I think that's very telling of what kind of player this guy can be. But also he had a really high drop rate. You know, a lot of focus drops and something the Packers receivers often struggle with, and so I think he's going to be a guy that sees the field pretty quickly because he's got such a diverse skill set. You know, they can use him in so many different ways. But yeah, he's got to show some polish, and it might take him a couple years to really crack the rotation as a outside receiver. Considering the fact they already have so many guys, but he does lack a lot of technique, I think. But yeah, who cares about all that when you look at his athleticism and the potential of that. And so him being taken in the third round feels a little steep, but also the tools that he has. It seems like the Packers really like that, and were shocked to see him on the board. And there wasn't any other guys from other positions they needed more at the time, according to them. And so they took him because they just were so excited to see him there. So I mean, I have faith that he'll be good because the front office thought so, but he's lower on my list because of the lack of polish.
Hmm. Yeah, he's one of those guys where I'm just like, I don't know. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised by anything with him. And just the more I watched him, the more confused I got as far as just trying to predict what his future is going to look like as a player. Yeah, I don't know. And then, like you said, Cordero Patterson, obviously he's been a successful player ish because he's still in the league, what, 10 years later?
Mm-hmm.
But was it the Bears that drafted him?
I'm trying to remember. Is the Bears or the Vikings? I think it was the Vikings.
Was it? Well, whatever team drafted him was obviously not too happy with how he turned out as a first round pick because he didn't stay with that team for more than his rookie contract. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The one thing that I will say is last year when I was watching the new players from the draft class, there was one player where I was like, I have no idea what this guy's going to be like. But yeah, he does some things well, but I just I was so confused about one player in specific, and that one player was Edrin Cooper. Where I just like was so just at a loss that I didn't even try and say, yeah, I think he's going to be good or I think he's going to be a bust because I couldn't figure him out. So if uh, if that trend holds, then I think that would be pretty exciting. But I'm not going to get myself too excited about that.
So we're saying that Baron Sorrell is going to be the Evan Williams. Savion is going to be the Edgerrin Cooper. Who's going to be the Jordan Morgan?
Oh no!
I'm just kidding. I guess we don't really have a bust already from last year. I mean, it's always too early, but
Yeah.
having Lloyd and Morgan be hurt, I can't really say
Well,
much about them. Everyone else
there's
is pretty good.
there's the other offensive lineman. Earlier, you were asking if it was just Monk and Glover. We forgot about Jordan Morgan.
I guess that's true.
Yeah. Okay, so that leaves me with Micah Robinson, who would have probably been my number 8 anyway. Um, Probably would have been between him and Savion. I just feel like ever since Eric Stokes, I just hate the type of corner that's really fast in a straight line but can't wiggle. And
Mhm.
it's really hard to find tape on him because he played at Furman and Tulane. So, I mean, who watches those games, right? But yeah, I mean, I watched one game of him and saw him give up quite a bit of cushion on a couple in breakers or some slant routes and just some stuff where I'm like, I don't know if the lateral agility matches up with the straight line speed, which is, I mean, he's a seventh round pick. I mean, what can you expect? But I feel similar to how I said with Brinson earlier, where I think there's going to be moments a couple months from now where the Packers are going to wonder if they should have drafted a defensive tackle or a cornerback earlier than they did.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you get drafted in the seventh round as a cornerback, you got to have a cool name for me to have some faith in you. I'm thinking about guys that slide down that end up being good. Carrington Valentine was destined to be a pretty good player. And then we didn't take him, but a guy like Rasul Douglas. Um, when was Sam Shields drafted? Was he an earlier pick?
He was undrafted, actually.
Oh, yeah. So Sam Shields, he sounds good, but Micah Robinson does not sound very good. And so I don't know. I didn't watch any tape on this guy, obviously because he's from Furman, Tulane, whatever, and I just haven't heard a whole lot of good from him. But he's a guy that I hope can make the roster and show us, and prove us wrong a little bit. But yeah, there's not much to say about him.
When you brought up Carrington Valentine, I remember that he was one of those guys similar to Evan Williams and Zach Tom. That the second I heard his name, I was like, okay, he's gonna be pretty good. Because I remember we were in the gym at the cabin, and we
Hmm.
just had the draft refreshing on our phone, and
Yeah,
you were like, Carrington Valentine, he's been number 1 on Mel Kiper's best available since the early 6th round, and the Packers just got him, and you were so excited. And then a couple picks later, they drafted Lou Nichols, the running back. Remember him?
Oh yeah,
and he didn't even make the team. But I remember in that moment being like, "Ooh, Mel Kiper's best available in the seventh round. That's sick. He's going to be pretty good." And he's been amazing. I love Carrington Valentine.
yeah, me too. He was there since like the end of the fourth, or like maybe not number one, but he was like top five for 3 rounds.
Okay, so you remember it then?
Yeah, yeah. So I remember being excited about that for that reason.
Yeah,
But yeah, he's one of my favorite Packers.
yeah, he's awesome. I just wish he would change his number back. I liked him better when he was 37,
What is it now?
24. There's
Yeah, that's right.
there's certain Packers numbers that I feel like are cursed, and 24 is one that's kind of like that to me. But I was thinking about this earlier. I'm just gonna say it now and tell me what you think. So the number 21, obviously you think of Charles Woodson, right?
Hmm.
So it's just a blessed number in Green Bay. And I was thinking the two players since Charles Woodson to wear the number 21 have been Haha Clinton Dix and Eric Stokes, who were both bad players, like really bad players at times. But the number 21 blessed them and carried them to at least one good rookie season for both of them. Because remember, like we were so excited about Clinton Dix that mom has his jersey, which is hilarious. So my theory is that Clinton Dix and Stokes were going to be horrible NFL players no matter what. I love those guys. I'm sorry to say it, but they were just not good NFL players. But the
Hmm.
magic number 21 bought them both one good season. And now the number 21 is being passed on to Nate Hobbs, who's already
Mm.
proven to be a good NFL player, and he's also coming from the Raiders.
Ooh, future Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's got to really step it up if he wants to make the Hall of Fame at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got to go
Man,
back in time and win the Heisman.
yep.
Okay, so moving on. We've got an 8-man rookie class. We've talked about this a little bit before. I kind of feel like it's a 10-man rookie class. So
Hmm.
you add in Jordan Morgan, you add in Marshawn Lloyd, two top 100 picks from last season that barely got to play. I kind of want to know. We've talked about Morgan a little bit already, so why don't we start with Lloyd? How are you feeling about the future of him as a contributor in the running back room?
Ooh, it's hard because obviously we finally have a running back that is durable. You can give him 20 plus snaps a game and rely on him every game. And so if Josh Jacobs is healthy, just like any team, they'll have, their second guy come in and get several snaps. It's hard because Emmanuel Wilson, I think, is a top 10 backup in the league for sure. He's good. He's
Yeah,
really good. And we're going to get to it later in the show, probably talking about, you know, upcoming free agents for next year. And so that is going to affect Marshawn Lloyd's value to what happens with Emmanuel Wilson this year and going into next offseason. But Lloyd right now is definitely the number three. We'll see if he just comes out like crazy in camp and, shows what he did in college. But even if he does, I think Wilson's going to have a great camp too. So it's really hard to say with Lloyd about how much he's going to play this year. But in terms of value, I think it was tremendous value. I think last year I remember listening to the Mel Kiper Field Yates podcast where you've listened to the one where they do the mega draft, right?
yeah,
Yeah, so last year I remember Field Yates, he took Marshawn Lloyd first at running back over anyone else. And help me remember, was it like Jonathan Brooks? Was he the best running back last year? Who was it?
he was the first back, and he was a good player.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was a few different running backs. There was no Bijan or Jameer Gibbs or anything last year, I don't think. But yeah, Field had Lloyd as his first, and so us getting him in the third round, I was really pumped about that because I remember that was one of the biggest needs I had on the board last year, and so I think that was great value when they got him, and I think he's going to be a really good player. He looks like a guy that has a mean streak
Yeah,
that's going to be just a dog for the Packers, but it is a little murky with Emmanuel Wilson being so good, a guy they've had for several years now and developed. So I don't know what's going to happen.
yeah, yeah. I mean, last year when we were going through and watching the players from last year, It's well documented. He was my favorite player from the class by
Mm-hmm.
a pretty wide margin. I was obsessed with Marshawn Lloyd last year, this time. And he played like one game in the preseason before he had that initial hamstring injury. And he had one carry. And on that one carry, I think he had two carries. But on the second carry, that was when he injured his hamstring. But it was kind of a run where he was supposed to go up the center. And then he bounced it to the left. And just so easily broke contain on the linebacker. It got called back because of a holding penalty, if I remember right. But it was one of those holding penalties that was a good call, but I don't think the guy would have had a chance to make the tackle. But I remember sitting there watching that run in preseason and like almost peeing my pants a little bit because he has that bounce and then instant acceleration. It's like Emmanuel Wilson is a really good player, but I think there's a world, and I don't think it's that unrealistic, where Marshawn Lloyd is taking more significant more significant carries from Josh Jacobs than Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks took from him last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a real world where there's going to be packages and situations where the Packers are going to prefer to have Marshawn Lloyd in the game over Josh Jacobs. And obviously it won't be often because Josh Jacobs is possibly the best player on the team. But I think Lloyd is that type of guy. And yeah, I'm thinking about this as a 10-man draft class because of how incredibly excited I am about a guy like Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah. Yeah. I did you see the thing the other day where some YouTuber was trying to talk Josh Jacobs to come to the Dolphins?
No.
He was on some stream with some YouTuber or something, and they're like, "Hey, Josh, you should come play for the Dolphins. You would love it in Miami." And he goes, "Nah, man, I'm trying to retire as a Packer. I love Green Bay."
Really?
And said that, and he's probably my favorite Packer right now. But I was just thinking about the the Love Jacobs duo. I think it's going to be there for the next 6+ years. I think Jacobs is going to be a guy that resigns and is going to love that duo. But I see Lloyd being the long term option behind him instead of Wilson. But I've also seen fans be like, let's just trade one of them. Trade one of them while you can. Yeah, what team is going to give you more than a seventh round pick for one of those guys?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm of the opinion, an injury is always going to happen. Keep all three. All three of them are going to get snaps at some point this year. I just hope that Lloyd does pass Wilson, but that's probably the deepest position group on the team. You don't even mention Chris Brooks, who's definitely the best pass blocker. So they got a lot of good options.
Yeah. Yeah. Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks are two of Goody's best diamond in the rough street free agent finds of the last couple years. Because those players last year were key.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember talking about how different the season would have been if it weren't for Malik Willis and Emmanuel Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, those guys were huge. Okay. So, do you want to talk roster guesses or do you want to do Madden ratings first?
Let's do the roster guesses.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give these to you, and we can talk about them together. But I've got 10 names written out over here. These are all guys who are either going to be unrestricted free agents or have contracts that um, might give the team potential outs to save money in 2026. So the game is, I'll give you the name. You tell me what percent sure you are that this guy is going to be on the team this day, May 15th. Is that what it is? May 15th?
Yeah.
2026. Okay. So we're going to start with an offensive lineman. We're going to start with Zach Tom.
Okay, I actually wrote out all of the percentages that I guessed for each of these players.
Okay.
And looking at my list, Zach Tom is the highest.
Okay.
I think with all the other uncertainty on the offensive line, he's clearly the best player. And I would guess the Packers are preparing to pay him what he wants.
Yeah.
And so I have him as an 85% in terms of likelihood to be on the team next year.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think I don't think it would even take an injury. I think it would take a whole season of him just being straight up bad for them to say maybe he's not worth it. But
Hmm.
even if he, you know, has a bad foot injury or something that keeps him out for the whole season, tears his ACL in week 4, I still think the Packers would be like, we got to keep this guy around.
Yeah, especially because even if he did get injured and couldn't play tackle anymore, he could play 3 other positions.
Yeah, true. Okay. So there's a lot of offensive linemen on the list, but we're gonna bounce around a little bit. So let's
Okay.
go. Let's go to quarterback with Malik Willis.
I think this is the most conditional one on how this year goes. Because part of me wanted to say 70% and part of me wanted to say 20%.
Yeah.
But I settled on 45%
Okay.
because, I mean, he showed that he was capable of winning, but I think a lot of teams might look at that and be like, LaFleur just set him up perfectly in that system to win a couple games. Um, he did show some arm talent, also leg talent, but yeah, I don't think that's a guy that really gets another shot. Like even if Love gets hurt for a few games, I mean he'll look pretty good, but I don't think he's going to go get a big contract next offseason. And he probably likes being able to be that backup for Love because I mean at this point in his career he seems like he will be a backup for the entirety of it, unless he all of a sudden just wows again. But yeah, I don't think there will be a huge market for him, but I'm going to put it under 50%.
Yeah. I think I think people are overstating a little bit what his value might be around the league. Because yeah, he looked pretty damn good last year. And people always bring up the Geno Smith or the Baker Mayfield or the Sam Darnold career arc where they
Mm-hmm.
fail at their first spot. They go work as a backup for a smart coach, learn the game, and then come back as a starter for another team and do well later. But Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick. I think Sam Darnold was 3 overall or something, and Geno
Mm-hmm.
Smith as well was drafted a lot higher than Malik Willis, who I think was a 3rd round pick if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're right. He looked really good for those 3 games, and I think he'll command a lot of money as a backup quarterback. Like he might get paid 12 million bucks even just to be a backup or something next year. But I don't necessarily think that a team like the Saints right now, after Derek Carr is gone, is going to try and send a 3rd round pick away to get Malik Willis or something like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
know people have been saying that online, but I've always seen that and been like, yeah, I don't know if people see him as worth that really. Okay,
Agreed.
45%. I like it. So next one, kind of a sticky one. There's a lot that goes into this. Interested to see what your number is, but let's go with Quay Walker.
Ooh, this is another one that it was a little telling that they didn't give him his 5th year extension or whatever you call it. But I have this one also at 45%
Okay.
because I think, I mean, they said they're declining is it the qualifying option? What do you call it?
Just the 5th year option.
5th year option. So they declined that, but it seems like the Packers came out and said, but we still have a lot of faith in Quay, and he's a guy that is in our long term future. But it's dependent on this year, as long as he doesn't look horrible. Um, and so I think realistically, if you think about the future of that group, obviously Adrian Cooper has a few more years. You hope Tyron Hopper can make a year 2 leap, but I'm not really counting on that. McDuffie just kind of always been there. He's been good, but doesn't seem like he's really a long term option. So Quay Walker honestly has to be considered next year to continue to be a starter. He's still really young, still super athletic. Maybe you get another year of him working on his technique and coverage skills and all that. But if they don't resign Quay Walker, that becomes our number 1 need next offseason, I think, which is a little scary. So I don't think there's going to be a huge market. A lot of fans for some reason think Quay Walker is really good just because of the fact he's a first rounder and is athletic and tall, but he's not that good. And so I think most teams will look at the tape and realize that, and there won't be a big market for him. So I have it at 45%, but he definitely has the chance to boost that this year.
Yeah, I think you're right to say it depends on this season because Edgerrin Cooper is the guy you want to pay, and I don't think that they necessarily have the resources to be paying big money to two different inside linebackers when there's so many other guys on the team that are going to be coming up for contracts here soon. So if you gave me, say, if there's a world where they pay Quay Walker $12 million a year, so then in a couple years they're paying Cooper and Quay Walker, I would rather have a world where they let Quay Walker go, they keep Cooper, they draft someone in the third round next year, and then they also sign a free agent, someone who's like Jack Sanborn or Robert Spillane type player.
Mm-hmm.
They can get a guy like that for 6 or 7 million on a cheaper or a shorter deal, on a 2-year deal or something like that. So then they're a free agent again by the time it is they're ready to pay Edgerrin Cooper. I just feel like
Good point.
it's not something the Packers are going to do is sink two big contracts into the linebacker position. And Cooper to me is so clearly like Quay is just he's always been such a frustrating player for me. And all the things that we were excited about the potential of Quay Walker for, like the athleticism, the pass rushing, the side to sideline or sideline to sideline speed, the TFL capabilities with his attack angles and his quickness to the backfield, everything that we were excited about Quay with, Edgerrin Cooper is just simply better at already.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think he's a better version of the same player. Why would you pay $12 million to keep the Walmart version of Edgerrin Cooper?
Facts. I agree with that.
Yeah. So I, for one, was extremely happy they did not pick up the option for him.
Were you excited about Devontae Wyatt though?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big season for both those guys.
True.
Okay, let's hit these next couple a little quicker, and then we'll get to one that I know is going to be really important to you. So let's go with Rasheed Walker to start.
This one just feels doomed just because of the recent draft picks, but I think they like him okay. He's a good. I kind of think of him as a stopgap left tackle for now. That's going to be about league average each year. But I think that's a spot they need to upgrade, which they've been trying to do. So I think Rasheed Walker is a 20% chance to be on the team, and that honestly might be a little high.
Yeah, he's not great in the Packers' eyes. I think they don't see him as a huge value for the team. But some team in the NFL is going to pay Rasheed Walker so much money next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's hit Sean Ryan too while we're at it.
Yeah, Sean Ryan, I think, has a pretty good chance just because his value seems like it's pretty low. And again, some team might overpay him, but with them letting Walker walk in re-signing Tom, I also have them re-signing Sean Ryan. So I put this at 55%.
Okay.
I think there's a chance there's a world in which they draft a guard early next year and just plan on replacing him, but
Yeah.
I like him enough.
So let's talk about Elton Jenkins as well. So for reference, Elton Jenkins is still under contract next season, but if his contract is not adjusted, they can save $18 million and only have, I think it's $6 million of dead cap by cutting him. So
It's pretty good.
what's your percentage on him?
I put a 30% chance.
Okay.
I think this youth movement continues and we see Kenny Clark and Elton Jenkins off the team pretty soon.
Yeah. I kind of think Kenny Clark will have one more year after this season.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I see Ryan and Jenkins as I kind of view them together because the Packers are only going to pay 3 linemen at the max. They're already paying Banks. They will pay Zach Tom. So then it comes down to, are they going to keep paying Jenkins or are they going to cut Jenkins and try and keep Sean Ryan? And I think that's a possibility that happens, especially because Sean Ryan has a little more center versatility. And he's a bigger dude. He's bigger than Jenkins. So if they really are wanting to go more towards that gap scheme style that can hold up against power rushers in the interior, an offensive line in 2026 that has Sean Ryan at center, Belton at right guard, Banks at left guard, and then Tom and Morgan at the tackle spots would be pretty sick. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of positional switching that would have to happen with that, so who knows if it's even possible, but it's a cool idea.
yeah, I like that.
Okay. All right, one I know that's important to you is your boy Romeo.
Yeah, makes me sad because he's the last jersey I bought, but I'm at a 15% chance. And we'll get to Watson in a bit, and I'm excited to talk about that one too. But Dobbs, I think, is really important this year for this team. He seems like he's a go-to option, like I mentioned earlier, on third downs and in the red zone. He's our best red zone receiver, at least last year.
Yeah.
Great contested catchability. You hope that he can protect his head better when he's making those contested catches. That's a big deal. And so, for the concussions, for his attitude problems, the people we drafted, I think there's, you know, all kinds of things going on that will lead him to being off the team next year.
Yeah. I agree. I also just want to say Romeo Dobbs is 1,000% going to sign like some 3-year, $48 million contract with the New England Patriots. And
Yeah.
he's going to have 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns in every single one of those 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And Patriots fans are going to be like, why did the Packers let him go? I can just see it happening so clearly. And it's not going to bug me at all because I kind of know like there's no way around it. But
Hmm.
he's a really good player. It's just not the
I
best
agree.
situation for him. Okay, what's your thoughts on Christian Watson then?
I have a lot of love for Christian Watson, and I think that he's going to be in the Packers' long-term plans because they still haven't seen what he can become. So I'm at 55%, but if his dad would delete his Twitter, it would be 80%.
Oh man, he's so annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about Christian though. With that ACL, he's probably not going to be back till at least Thanksgiving. So if he's back the week after Thanksgiving, he'll play like 6 games before the end of the season, and he'll probably be on a pretty strict pitch count for at least 3 of those games. So if that's the case, and he really plays 3 full games and 3 half games, I mean, how many targets and catches? I think there's a world that's really realistic to me where even if Watson does come back and is looking like himself again, which is not a given with an ACL, but even if he does, I think there's a world where he doesn't have more than 20 catches.
Hmm.
So then if he goes into free agency and his stats are like 17 catches for 193 yards and 1 touchdown in 2025, I mean, who's going to sign him to a multi-year contract, right?
Yeah.
It'll be like a 1 year, $8 million contract or something like that. And I can totally see the Packers being like, let's give it one more shot. You play well this season, and then we'll sign you to a big deal next year.
Yeah. I can see that. And plus, it seems like he really likes Green Bay, so I can see him sticking around for another year on that type of deal.
Yeah. Okay. I think our second to last one is Jair. Just give me your number on that. I'm assuming it's pretty low.
Yeah, I have it at 20%, but this could easily be 85 if he just goes back to being Jair this year.
Yeah, I agree. And then Emmanuel Wilson is the last one.
I had this one at 30%, and if they hadn't drafted Lloyd, it'd probably be 65.
Okay, I like it. All right. Well, do you want to hand out some Madden ratings and then call it for the day?
Yeah, I'm gonna go through a lot, like most of the team, but I want this to be pretty rapid fire because I've thought about it, and if I have any that are way different than what you have,
Okay.
I will voice my opinion. But I kind of just want to hear what you think.
Okay.
So you can justify them if you want, or just give me a number. But let's go, Jordan Love.
84.
I like it. Jacobs,
89.
Wilson,
77.
Uh, Golden.
Um, oh, it's tough for rookies. 79.
I think that's fair. It's usually what first rounders are about. Okay, Dobbs.
78.
Reed.
82.
Wicks.
76.
First of all, on Wicks, I'm fully bought in on the Devonte Adams timeline. Year one, year one, he was a surprisingly good rookie
Yeah.
that we got excited about. Year two had all the yips and drops. Year three was a monster.
That'd be
So
amazing.
yeah, it would. Okay, Kraft.
Oh, he's one of my favorites. I'm going to say 88, but he's going to be in the 90s soon.
I like that. Musgrave.
77.
We need him to bounce back.
Yeah.
Okay, Rasheed Walker.
79.
Uh, Banks.
Interested to see him in the offense, but 77.
Okay,
I
I think
was
that's
not a
fair.
fan of that signing overall.
Yeah. Jenkins at center.
83.
Okay. Sean Ryan.
I'm a big Sean Ryan fan, so I'm going to say 79.
Okay. Zach Tom.
88.
I like it. Okay, so on the offense, so far you have Jacobs as our best player, then Kraft and Tom right behind.
And then Love.
Yeah, then there's a gap of 4 points down to Jordan Love.
Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds fair.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't have had much different. Okay, let's go Rashawn Gary.
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to say 85.
Yeah, he started the year last year at like 88 or so, and then I think he probably dropped to an 82 and then bounced back a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, Lucas Van Nasty.
Oh, 71?
Whoa. I would say like a 74 is what I had.
Yeah. He's like,
Pretty low.
he's getting dangerously close to Quay Walker, Eric Stokes territory for me.
Yeah,
This year is do or die for him.
and he was the highest draft pick we'd had in like a decade.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, what about Enigbare?
Mm, 69.
So would you already have Sorrell above both of those guys?
Yeah, I'd have Sorrell the same as Van Ness.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably fair.
Same
Okay,
with
Devontae Wyatt.
Wyatt. I think he's pretty underrated. I'm going to say 81.
Ooh. Did he lead in sacks? Like right behind Gary for most of the year he was leading, right?
Yeah, I think he might have been second or third. I'm not sure.
But didn't Gary lead with like only 7.5?
Yeah, it was something pretty pitiful.
Yeah. Okay, Carl Brooks.
78.
Okay. Kenny Clark.
81.
Yeah, I think he's equal with Wyatt at this point. Okay. McDuffie.
75.
Way too high. Just kidding. I would put him in that range. I'm excited for this one. Edgerrin Cooper.
85.
Remember how frustrated we were last year when they wouldn't start him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see that same thing happening to Golden?
Oh God, I hope not. But
Yeah.
you just unlocked a fear in me now that you say that.
Yeah, it's hard when they already have three guys they trust.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. Okay. Quay Walker.
75.
Like you said, if they could only put McDuffie's brain into Walker's body,
Yeah.
maybe a 95. Okay, Jair.
87.
I like it. Nixon.
That's a good one. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 80.
What about Hobbs?
84.
Hmm.
I like him a lot. I kind of a weird positional signing, but I think he's gonna be a fan favorite pretty quick.
The fact that Madden has him at an 80 when they underrate everybody,
Yeah.
I think is a little telling.
Yeah. Yeah. He's.
Okay, Valentine.
I want to go higher with him. 79. Just a tick below Nixon.
So you look at that right there. If Jair plays up to even close to what he usually is,
Yeah.
that's a really solid room.
Yeah. It is.
But it's so dependent on that. Okay, let's go McKinney.
93.
Okay, Evan Williams.
82.
Okay. What do you think our safety ratings were last year, like 2 years ago?
Oh, when Savage was there, and who else would that have
Who's
even been?
It's not Amos, was it? Was there a year in between?
Yeah, there's a year in between. So the 2023 team. Oh, let me Google it.
Okay. Savage was definitely the best.
Yeah. Come on now. Oh boy. I forgot how bad this was. Oh man.
What was it?
So the guy that took the second most snaps was Jonathan Owens.
Oh,
And then the third most snaps was Rudy Ford.
oh yeah.
So now you switch out Darnell Savage for McKinney, Jonathan Owens for Evan Williams, and Javon Bullard for Rudy Ford.
Man, respect to Goody for pulling that off.
Yeah, right.
Okay, what about Bullard then?
I'm actually not as high on him. I'd say probably 74.
Okay. All right. Let's go McManus.
No clue. I don't know. 81.
I think you got to give some love here to Daniel Whalen.
Yeah, 97. He's the best player on the team.
Woo! You mentioned our MVPs, not MVP, but very important players last year being Willis and Wilson. Daniel Whalen might be above both of those.
He did have some good games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, too bad I still have Madden 24, so I'm gonna have to go create last year's rookies and this year's rookies.
Okay.
Try to give them a generic face, but that was helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any way I can be of service. Um, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to cover. we'll have to get back again at some point and do some roster projections and just talk about like strengths and weaknesses of the teams because I've got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of thoughts on that. But I think today was good to just focus on the new players specifically. And I
Yeah.
think we did a good job of that. Um, so hopefully next time we do a podcast, you won't be childless. And and to all our listeners out there, we're so thankful to you guys tuning in, and we hope that you guys will go support our wonderful sponsors, Charmin and Tampax. They are wonderful, wonderful helps in the world of bathroom hygiene and health. So I hope you guys will take those seriously. And to Charmin and Tampax, you are welcome for your free advertising.
I'd also like to just let the fans know, all those Wisconsin fans out there, that we'll also be releasing a Milwaukee Bucks podcast talking about the off season and what we're expecting to happen, and we'll go into Giannis trade rumors and things of that nature. But also want to thank Zach Lowe and the Eurostep podcast for being my inspiration. So shout out to both of them.
Okay. Well, we love you, Mom. Thanks for listening. You're probably our only listener.
All right, we'll see y'all later.